The large classroom on the academy station was always bright and quiet in the morning. It floated above a calm blue nebula, and the windows showed stars slowly moving across the sky. Students from many peaceful planets sat in soft seats, waiting for the lesson to begin. Some of them had smooth skin, some had small scales, and a few had soft feathers on their heads. They all came to learn about the strange and wide galaxy. In the middle row sat the only human in the class, a young woman named Claire Brooks. She kept her hands on the table and looked straight ahead, trying not to draw attention. She was used to being the only human in many rooms. It did not bother her much, but she always felt a little pressure in places where people whispered about Earth. The teacher, Professor Zero, walked into the room. He was tall, with long arms and eyes that glowed faint blue. He greeted the class in a calm voice and touched the holoscreen. A large map of the galaxy appeared behind him. The students stopped talking and focused on the lesson. Professor Zero told them that today's lesson would be about dangerous planets. He said the galaxy had many worlds that were gentle and safe, but some planets were wild, unstable, and hard to survive on. He called them death worlds. When he said the word, some students shifted in their seats. They had learned that death worlds were rare and mysterious, and they were curious to hear more. The professor listed a few worlds with dangerous climates. He talked about planets with poisonous air, molten ground, or storms that never ended. Then the hollow screen changed again, and a picture of a blue and green planet appeared. Claire felt her shoulders stiffen. She knew this moment would come, but she still wished it had not. The professor pointed to the planet and said in a gentle voice that this world was called Earth. He said Earth was one of the most well-known death worlds. The class went quiet. Many alien students turned their eyes toward Claire. She kept her face calm, but she felt their eyes on her like soft pressure. Claire knew she had done nothing wrong, but she also knew that most aliens still found it hard to believe that humans came from such a wild planet. Some of the students stared at her with fear, others with curiosity, and a few with confusion. Claire sighed quietly and tried not to let it bother her. One small alien student named Laro raised his hand. His skin was pale green, and his eyes were large and round. He looked nervous but also kind. Professor Zero nodded at him. Laro turned toward Claire and spoke in a soft voice. He said he did not want to offend her, but he had always wondered something. He had heard many stories about Earth. He had heard that almost everything there could hurt you. He had heard that the weather changed too fast and that the animals were dangerous. So he wanted to know why that planet was so harsh and how humans lived there. The room became silent again. No one moved. Even the air seemed still. Claire felt every eye in the room on her again. She felt her heart beat faster. She did not know if she wanted to answer. She had explained these things before in other classes, and it always made the room strange for a while. Professor Zero looked at her kindly and said she did not need to answer if she was uncomfortable. Claire appreciated that, but she also knew that the class was asking a real question, not a rude one. Laro was polite, and the others seemed honestly curious, not hostile. Claire took a slow breath and said she could try to explain. She warned them that Earth was not simple to describe. It was beautiful, yes, but also dangerous. She told them the truth might surprise them or even worry them. But she said she would be honest. The students leaned closer. Even students who usually whispered during class stayed silent. Claire began by saying that Earth was a living planet full of movement. It was not calm like the water worlds or still like the crystal planets. Earth changed all the time. Land moved, air moved, water moved. Sometimes it moved gently, and sometimes it moved with great force. She told them that the ground itself was not safe to trust. The land shifted under people's feet because the planet had plates that pushed and pulled at each other. Sometimes the ground shook so hard that buildings fell. Sometimes mountains opened and sent fire into the sky. Many alien students gasped softly. A few of them could not imagine the land behaving like a living creature. Professor Zairo wrote notes while Claire spoke. His eyes glowed brighter, showing interest. Claire continued. She explained that the oceans could rise into storms so strong that they destroyed whole towns. She said winds on Earth could scream like wild creatures. She talked about freezing winters that killed crops and burning summers that dried rivers. A student from a calm water world raised her hand and asked how humans managed to live with all these threats. Claire said that humans grew up with danger, so they learned to adapt. They built shelters, learned to predict storms, and worked together. The student looked amazed, as if she had never thought of danger as something normal. Claire added that Earth was not dangerous only because of nature. The animals there were strong and fast. Some animals hunted humans long ago, and even today there were creatures that could harm people if they were not careful. She described snakes, spiders, and large wild animals. The aliens stared with wide eyes. Many of them came from worlds where all animals were gentle. Another student quietly asked if plants were also dangerous. Claire nodded. She explained that some plants could poison you if you touched them or ate them. Others had sharp thorns. Some caused sickness that lasted for weeks. A few students shivered at the thought of plants that could fight back. Claire tried to speak slowly, using simple words so no one misunderstood. She did not want to scare them too much. She wanted them to understand Earth, not fear it. As she continued, she felt the class change. In the beginning, the students had looked at her with confusion or fear. Now they looked at her with surprise and curiosity. They realized she was not bragging or trying to sound strong. She was simply telling the truth. Professor Zairo asked if she could explain more about sickness on Earth. Claire said that humans faced many sicknesses that changed quickly. Some sicknesses were caused by tiny life forms that evolved fast and learned to resist medicine. Humans had to keep learning and keep fighting to stay healthy. Olin, a quiet alien who rarely spoke, raised his hand. He asked how humans developed cities and technology when they had to deal with so many dangers. Claire answered that danger taught humans to think fast and work together. She explained that humans could be stubborn, and that stubbornness helped them survive. The class listened closely. No one whispered. No one looked away. Claire paused for a moment. She wanted to choose her next words carefully. She told them that Earth made humans stronger, but it also made them understand fear and pain from a young age. She said this was why humans valued safety and friendship so much. When a person lived on a world that tried to break them, kindness became important. The students looked at each other. Many of them seemed to understand something new. The hollow screen behind Claire still showed Earth, glowing blue and green. Some students stared at the picture differently now. They did not see it as just a dangerous place. They saw a world that shaped a species into fighters, thinkers, builders, and survivors. Professor Zero thanked Claire for speaking. He said he had taught many classes, but this was the first time he had heard such a clear explanation of Earth. He said he hoped the other students understood how remarkable humans were. Claire felt her face warm slightly. She did not like attention, but she appreciated the kindness. Laro looked at her and said he never knew humans went through so much. He said he had only heard small stories, but hearing the truth from her made him understand humans better. Claire smiled at him gently and said she was glad to share. The class bell sounded. Students slowly gathered their things. Some of them walked past Claire and gave her small nods or quiet thanks. It surprised her, but in a good way. As the students left, Claire stayed seated for a moment, looking out the window. She saw the stars shining outside the Academy station. She felt peaceful knowing that maybe, today, the galaxy understood humans just a little more. After the class, Claire walked down the long hallways of the Academy. The walls glowed softly, and distant engines hummed through the station. She carried her bag and moved slowly, thinking about what she had just told the students. Many of them seemed shocked, but she hoped they also understood. Earth was not just dangerous, it was a place that shaped people in ways that others could not imagine. Claire found a quiet corner near the observation deck. The stars outside the window stretched in endless lines of light. She leaned against the wall and thought about the questions the students had asked. Laro's face came to her mind. He had looked both curious and worried. He seemed to want to understand, not judge. Claire liked that. She often met people who were afraid of humans, but Laro seemed different. Professor Zero appeared behind her quietly. "You did well today," he said in his soft, calm voice. "Not many teachers can explain Earth so clearly. You made them listen and think. That is no small thing." Claire smiled a little. "Thank you," she said. "I just told the truth. That's all." "It's not easy, but it's the truth." The professor nodded. "Sometimes truth is the most powerful lesson. It shapes minds in ways stories cannot." Claire stayed for a moment and then left the deck. She moved to the academy cafeteria to get something to eat. The cafeteria was busy, full of students from different planets. Some had many arms, some had tails, and some had strange eyes that changed color with emotion. Everyone ate in their own way, but they shared tables and laughed. Humans had learned long ago that to survive on a wild planet, cooperation was key. Claire thought about that as she walked past groups of aliens talking quietly. She sat at a small table and unpacked her food. She ate slowly, listening to conversations around her. Many students were talking about Earth. Some whispered, "Can you believe it? That planet is supposed to be impossible." Others said, "How can humans survive there? It sounds like the world itself wants to kill them." Claire smiled quietly to herself. They were beginning to understand. Some students could not yet grasp the strength humans gained from danger, but many were thinking in new ways. After lunch, the class gathered for the next lesson. Professor Zero had planned a discussion about survival on different planets. He asked students to give examples of how their species handled danger. A tall alien with silver skin spoke first. She said her people avoided storms by building cities underwater. A small purple alien said they had strong shields to protect them from falling rocks. Each student shared their experiences, and Claire listened carefully. They were all clever and brave in their own ways, but she knew Earth had taught humans something different. Earth taught them to face danger directly, to fight through storms, fire, and sickness, and to keep trying no matter how many times they failed. Finally, Professor Zero turned to Claire. "Can you share more about human survival?" he asked. "Many students are curious. Tell them how humans handled danger long before technology." Claire nodded. She took a deep breath and began. "Humans had no shields, no advanced machines, and no safe cities at first," she said. "They lived in the wild, where the weather could kill them, animals could hunt them, and sickness could strike anyone. They learned to watch, to move carefully, and to protect each other." She paused to see the students' faces. Some looked frightened just imagining such a life. Claire continued. "Humans learned to make tools from stone, wood, and bone. They used fire to stay warm and cook food. They built shelters to protect themselves. And they formed groups because alone they could not survive. They shared food, taught each other skills, and protected the weak. That is why humans are strong together." An alien student named Tilo raised his hand. "How did humans deal with predators?" he asked. He had blue skin and thin legs that moved quickly. Claire explained that humans learned to watch animals carefully and to understand their behavior. They built traps, used weapons, and worked together to keep predators away. Sometimes humans lost fights, she said, and sometimes they had to run or hide. But they never gave up. The students seemed impressed. Many of them had never faced predators themselves. Their worlds were safe, and danger was rare. Another alien, Kira, asked about sickness. "Did humans have medicine?" she asked. Claire smiled softly. "They did, eventually," she said. "But sickness often came first. People had to learn what plants could heal and what made them worse. Sometimes they guessed wrong. Sometimes they lost many people. But they learned. They always learned." Professor Zero nodded slowly. "Danger shapes intelligence and careful thinking," he said. "But humans seem to have more than that. There is something else." Claire understood what he meant. "Humans also learn to feel for others," she said. "When someone was hurt or sick, others helped them. Humans knew danger themselves, so they tried to reduce it for others. They built shelters, healed the sick, and taught their young how to survive. Danger made humans smart, but it also made them kind." The students sat quietly. Some of them whispered to each other, trying to understand. They had thought humans were dangerous because of their world, but now they saw that humans had grown careful, clever, and helpful because of the danger. Earth had given humans something different from other species, the ability to survive with heart as well as strength. Claire went on. She spoke about human history. Humans faced cold winters, dry summers, earthquakes, storms, floods, fires, and disease, she said. Many times entire cities were destroyed, but humans rebuilt. They did not stop. They learned from mistakes and from disaster. Every failure became a lesson for the next generation. That is why humans survived on a death world. Olin, the quiet alien from the first class, raised his hand. "Did humans always fight each other?" he asked. Claire shook her head. "No," she said. "Humans sometimes fought because of fear or hunger, but they also learned to work together. Danger taught them to protect each other. Those who lived alone often did not survive. People learned that helping each other was the best way to live." The students began to look at her with new eyes. They realized that humans were different, not just because Earth was dangerous, but because humans faced danger in ways that created intelligence, courage, and compassion all at once. Professor Zero smiled. "Danger alone does not make a species remarkable," he said. "But surviving it, learning from it, and using it to grow, that is something else entirely." Claire nodded. She could see that the students were thinking. They whispered quietly among themselves, comparing their own safe lives to the life humans had endured. Some of them seemed nervous, as if they could not imagine facing such challenges. Others seemed inspired, wondering what they could learn from humans. Claire felt a quiet pride. She did not need anyone to praise humans. She only wanted others to understand why her species was strong, brave, and determined. Earth had not been easy. It had taken everything from humans, but humans had returned stronger every time. The class ended, and students slowly filed out. Some stopped to ask Claire questions. One asked how humans climbed mountains. Another asked how humans built boats to cross dangerous rivers. Claire answered each question with simple explanations. She told them humans used tools, teamwork, and courage. They failed sometimes, but they never gave up. As the students left, Laro lingered for a moment. He looked at Claire and said, "I think I understand now. Humans are not just strong because they survived. They are strong because they cared, and they kept trying. That is amazing." Claire smiled. "Yes," she said. "That is why humans survived on a death world. Not because Earth was easy, but because humans never gave up." Laro nodded slowly and left. Claire watched him go, thinking that perhaps the galaxy would never fully understand humans, but at least some minds had begun to see the truth. Claire stayed in the empty classroom for a few minutes. She looked at the hollow of Earth one last time. She remembered the storms, the wild animals, the sickness, and the hardships. She also remembered the people who had helped each other, built shelters, discovered fire, and learned to survive against impossible odds. That was what she wanted the students to understand, that Earth was harsh, but humans were stronger than anyone could imagine. She left the classroom and walked down the hallways of the Academy station. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly, like a silent promise of more worlds, more challenges, and more chances to show the strength of humans. She knew that one day, perhaps, more aliens would understand that life on Earth had made humans unique, brave, and full of heart. The next morning, Claire arrived early at the academy. The hallways were quiet except for the soft hum of the station. She walked to the classroom, carrying her bag and her notebook. Today, Professor Zero had promised a deeper discussion about human history and the ways humans had survived on Earth. Claire felt a small thrill of anticipation. She knew that the students were curious. She wanted to help them understand fully. When she entered, many students were already seated. Some of them had been talking about Earth and human survival since yesterday. Others were nervous, unsure of what to expect. Claire walked to her usual seat in the middle row. She smiled politely at the students around her. A few returned her smile. Some looked at her with wide eyes, still amazed by the stories of her planet. Professor Zero entered and greeted everyone. Today we will focus on the history of humans and how they overcame dangers on Earth, he said. He turned to Claire. You may begin. Tell them the story of humans before cities, before machines, before safety. Claire nodded and touched the hollow panel. Images of wild forests, mountains, and rivers appeared. Long ago, she began, humans lived in the wild. There were no cities, no technology, no easy ways to survive. The world around them was full of danger. Cold winters could kill them. Heat waves made water and food hard to find. Earthquakes and storms could destroy homes in minutes. Animals hunted humans, and sickness spread quickly. Every day was a challenge. She paused and looked at the students. Their eyes were wide. Some whispered quietly. Many had never imagined a life so full of danger. Claire continued, speaking slowly and clearly. Humans learned quickly. They watched animals, the weather, and the land. They learned what was safe and what was not. They learned to make tools. Stones could be sharpened into knives and axes. Wood could be used to build shelters. Fire was discovered, giving warmth, light, and protection. Humans began to survive in ways no one had expected. A student with soft purple skin raised a hand. How did humans deal with sickness? She asked. Claire nodded. Sickness was dangerous. Sometimes entire families or villages would die from disease. Humans learned which plants could heal and which could hurt. They watched carefully and tried to understand the world. They failed many times, but every failure taught them something. They learned to care for each other. The sick were protected, and knowledge grew. Another alien with blue-gray scales asked, were humans always strong, or did danger make them stronger? Claire smiled. Both, she said. Humans were small and fragile at first, but the dangers of Earth made them smart, careful, and brave. People who gave up or did not help each other did not survive. Those who learned, worked together, and fought through fear became stronger. That is how humans grew as a species. The class was silent. Even Laro and Olin, who were always quiet, leaned forward to listen. Claire felt a quiet satisfaction. They were beginning to see what she had known all along. Humans were not just survivors. They were learners, builders, and protectors. Claire moved to the next point. She explained how humans discovered hunting, farming, and community. At first, humans hunted animals for food. They tracked them, planned carefully, and used teamwork. Hunting was dangerous, but it taught humans strategy, courage, and patience. Later, humans learned to grow food. Farming allowed them to stay in one place, build homes, and grow communities. Villages turned into towns and towns turned into cities. Every step was hard, but humans never stopped. A small green alien whispered to a friend, "It is amazing they did all that while the planet was trying to kill them." Claire overheard and nodded slightly. That was exactly the point. Humans had grown because Earth had forced them to grow. She continued with the story of disasters. Humans faced floods, fires, earthquakes, and storms that could destroy entire cities. Many times people lost everything. They lost homes, families, and food. But humans did not give up. They rebuilt. They learned from mistakes. They became stronger after every disaster. Their history is written in hardship, and that hardship shaped them into who they are. Professor Zero glanced at Claire and nodded. "Your story is clear and strong. The students are beginning to see what makes humans unique." Claire continued without stopping. She wanted the students to feel the weight of history, to understand that survival was more than physical strength. It was courage, intelligence, and care for others. She spoke about human wars, but not to glorify them. "Humans sometimes fought each other," she said, "because resources were scarce or because of fear. But they also learned peace, negotiation, and justice. Even in war, humans tried to protect the weak and learn from experience. They understood that survival was not only about strength, it was also about wisdom and compassion." Olin finally spoke. "Do humans ever fail completely? Or does someone always survive?" Claire smiled softly. "Many humans have failed," she said. "Entire cities have been lost. Entire generations have struggled. But humans keep learning. There is always someone who survives, someone who remembers, someone who rebuilds. That is why humans endure. That is why they can live on a death world." The students were silent. Some looked worried. Some looked inspired. Some whispered to each other. They had never realized that survival could mean more than avoiding death. Humans had faced death every day and learned to grow from it. Claire moved to another part of history. Humans explored their planet. They climbed mountains that could crush them with avalanches. They crossed deserts that burned under the sun. They sailed oceans that could drown them. They went into forests where predators hunted them. Every step was dangerous, but humans wanted to learn, to understand, and to survive. Danger was part of their education. Laro raised his hand. "Why did they take such risks?" he asked. Claire thought for a moment. "Because humans wanted to live fully," she said. "They wanted to understand the world. They wanted to help each other. They wanted to be prepared. Facing danger made them stronger, smarter, and ready for the unknown." Another student, Kira, asked, "Did humans ever give up?" Claire shook her head. "Sometimes people failed. Sometimes they were afraid. Sometimes they ran or hid. But they did not stop. Others took their place, tried again, and taught the next generation. That is why humans survived on a death world, because they never truly gave up." The students looked at Claire with new understanding. Even Professor Zero's glowing eyes seemed brighter, full of thought. Claire continued to speak, explaining how humans built knowledge. "Humans learned from every failure," she said. "They recorded what happened, taught it to their children, and planned for the future. They learned about the stars, the land, the oceans, and themselves. Every disaster became a lesson, every danger a teacher." The class was quiet. The students whispered softly to each other. They were beginning to see that humans were not just lucky or reckless. Humans had survived because they learned from the world and from each other. Claire's voice grew soft as she spoke about human compassion. "Humans helped each other," she said. "When someone was sick, they cared for them. When someone was hungry, they shared food. When someone was lost, they searched for them. Danger taught humans to care, not only for themselves but for others. That is why humans survived. That is why humans are different. Olin leaned forward. It sounds like Earth made humans strong in more ways than one, he said. Claire nodded. Yes, she said. Earth made humans clever, brave, careful, and kind. They survived not only because they were strong, but because they cared and learned from every challenge. Professor Zero stood and addressed the class. This is important, he said. We often measure strength by power or speed, but humans show that strength also comes from learning, courage, and care. They face danger every day and become wiser, braver, and more capable. That is why a death world can produce a remarkable species. The class slowly began to rise from their seats. Some students stopped to talk to Claire. They asked about mountains, animals, and storms. Claire answered each question with simple words. She told them humans learned, worked together, and survived. The students seemed amazed. Some whispered, "Humans are incredible." Others nodded quietly, as if trying to understand fully. As the students left, Claire stayed behind for a few minutes. She looked at the hollow of Earth. She thought about mountains, rivers, forests, and oceans. She thought about people who had faced every danger and survived. She thought about fire, sickness, and storms, and the courage it took to continue. She felt proud, not because humans were perfect, but because they had endured, learned, and grown. The stars outside the academy glowed gently. Claire walked to the observation deck and leaned against the railing. The galaxy was wide, full of worlds, some safe, some dangerous. She thought about the alien students who had begun to understand humans. She thought about Laro, Olin, and the others. Perhaps one day, the galaxy would see what she had always known, that humans were more than survivors. Humans were strong, brave, clever, and kind. Humans were made by a death world, but they were ready for the stars. Claire stayed there for a long moment, watching the endless sky. She knew that history, danger, and learning had shaped humans into something the galaxy had not yet seen. And she smiled quietly, thinking that perhaps, someday, everyone would understand.